Good evening and welcome to another episode of This Week in 60 Minutes. I'm your host, Roodi Balgobin, and I'd also like to extend welcome to those of you joining us via our Facebook live stream.
And I'm Nalini, and this week's focus is delay tactics, election gimmicks, Guyana on the road to a constitutional crisis.
Good evening, I am Juan Edgel Jr., and tonight we have much to discuss, given the recent happenings that have been occurring this past week.
Yes, so let's get right into it. And I'm sure the question on everyone's mind is what is really taking place at the Guyana Elections Commission. As you probably are already aware, the leader of the opposition with a team from the People's Progressive Party, members of parliament, had a meeting, a very long meeting, a 2 hours discussion with the commission, the full commission, and the Secretariat was also represented there. Mr. Keith Lowenfield was also a part of that meeting, among others from the Secretariat. So the most important thing that came out of this meeting, and the leader of the opposition would have mentioned to the press, that there are some very encouraging statements uttered by the chairperson of the Guyana limit to the March 2020 that has been put forward by the Secretariat. And also, he also alluded to the fact that the March 2020 date is totally out of the window. If you take a look at your screens, you'll see that's the meeting. You can see the PP nominated commissioners along with the government nominated commissioners there and the team that was with the leader of the opposition at that meeting. So guys, as we keep to reiterate here on this program, we are nowhere closer to a date. However, as the leader of the opposition would have said, there are some very encouraging words, and hopefully we can get something soon.
Yes, I think it was a good sign that the opposition would have met with GCOM, and the encouraging words, I feel like it's something to look forward to, and to ensure that we have this date very, very soon, as mandated by the Constitution and the law.
Well, it's almost a year to the no confidence motion.
Definitely. So a lot of time has elapsed.
Many 3 months.
Indeed, a lot of time. So I'm also happy that we know for sure now that March, it's not next year is not going to cut it. Elections have to be this year.
2019.
Yes, well, we also have a brief clip from one of those who represented the People's Progressive Party Member of Parliament. If our operator has that queued up, you can go ahead and let's have a look at what he says concerning the meeting.
Excellent.
Presented the case that the shortest timeline upholding the Constitution is necessary, and what will ensure we have the shortest timeline is for the Commission to immediately extract a preliminary voters list from the National Register of Registrants and to move into claims and objections mode. And that was an important suggestion. Importantly, at the end of the meeting, summing up everything that transpired, the chair indicated that she has taken everything into consideration presented by the leader of the opposition and his team, and indicated further that she as chair and the commission is working towards a timeline having elections long before the end of the year. And that's why we were very much surprised and shocked when we see the Secretariat, press release just issued by the Secretariat, trying to justify this long drawn-out timelines, including many of the things that will take us months into holding an elections.
Good evening and welcome back again. You just heard from Joe Hamilton, PPPC Member of Parliament, and very encouraging indeed. What he would have said is that the chairperson assured the team that visited the leader of the opposition and his team that they have taken all into consideration, which is, of course, that we should extract a preliminary list of electors forthwith and from the NRR and move directly into a period of claims and objections. which will then capture new registrants rather
And
than try to
transfers and all the necessary
yes,
things will be done.
rather than try to merge the existing data that was gathered from the house-to-house registration, some 370,000
I
plus.
know.
Allegedly to the
Yes,
NRR.
Roodi and Nalini, all along the while, the PPP has really been saying that a claims and objections period will take care of all of this.
Well, it's funny though, after the house-to-house was said to have been
Yes.
not necessary, now
Yes.
the PNC you're hearing, oh yes, we can go to claims
Claims
and
and
objections.
objections, when
It's-
all the while the
They knew
PPP has
that
been
too.
saying the claims and objections will allow for new registrants to get on the list. It will ensure that no one is disenfranchised from
Yeah.
voting in the next elections, and that is the important thing.
And that's why we
about
keep
this.
reiterating on this show that it's all just a delay tactic from the government
Yeah.
to remain
Yes.
in office as long as they can. But what Joe said is that the chairperson has assured the team that she will have an election long before the end of the year.
Yeah, so elections this year is not a crazy concept,
Mhm.
as the PNC commissioners and PNC group want everyone to believe.
Well, as usual, the Guyana Chronicle has been trying to put a spin on this,
Yes.
and
Well,
I
it
don't
is
think
their
anyone
job.
is buying it. Everyone knows about this as well, and I think the party would have said something as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
there was actually a press statement. Following the meeting that occurred, we saw a press statement issued by the Secretariat,
Mhm.
one that elicited a strong response from the PPP,
Mhm.
which made it clear that a rogue GCOM Secretariat cannot be allowed to undermine democratic
think
process.
One,
the
before you
democratic process.
read the press statement, we
Yes.
should just differentiate. The Secretariat are not proposed by the
Yes.
government. So there's the commission, which is the three government officials and the three
The tree.
opposition, and the chairperson, whereas the Secretariat are all
The
public
staff-
servants.
staff of
Yes,
Pub-
public
that
which,
they're
which
supposed
is
to-
headed by Mr. Keith Lowenfield.
Yes.
We like to wish Mr. Keith Lowenfield a speedy,
Speedy
recovery
recovery.
as well.
Speedy recovery.
We heard that he was hospitalized last night,
Yes.
subsequently after the meeting. So
Yes.
We wish him well.
We do wish him well to get back, and,
yeah,
and
get back to work
get
and
back to work.
get an elections as soon as possible.
Yes. Yeah, so the press statement, I'll just read a few of the lines here.
Mhm.
The latest press statement issued by the Guyana Elections Commission, GCOM Secretariat, is another manifestation of the lengths to which it will go to justify delaying general and regional elections, which ought to have been held since March 21, 2019. The runaway Secretariat continues to invent reasons for lengthy timelines for which it has been called out by the local media corps, that were included in its notorious election activities plan that envisages elections being held until March 2020. A full year past, and you were saying this, Nalini, a full year past the constitutionally mandated deadline. But notably, the statement also issued before the conclusion of the today's statutory meeting involving the GCOM chairperson and the 6 GCOM commissioners, where key issues were addressed. So, before the meeting would have ended with the PPP and the commission.
Mhm.
The Secretariat went ahead and issued a
Statement.
statement.
Oh, yes.
So
Seeking to justify this 1-year time
This-
lapse that they
yes,
want
that
to
they want
impose.
to.
So one can conclude that the Secretariat is really operating apart from the commission and is not taking its instructions from the commission.
It's funny if you look at the last two press statements that GCOM press release statements have been.
Yeah.
The last line is always denoting the terms credible elections.
Yes.
And
It's in contrast.
it's words repeating from Congress Place almost.
Exactly.
Seems to be directions, huh?
Those are the lines that have been carried by the PNC. Credible elections, we have to ensure sanitizing the list and all the rest of it.
As soon as possible.
Yes,
Mhm.
and all the rest of it. So the PPP has been from the beginning, and I have to say from the get-go, has been calling for free and fair elections, elections that will ensure that everyone gets a chance to exercise their franchise, their rights, and cast their ballots at the next elections, ensuring that new voters are on the list, ensuring that people who are not qualified to be on the list is not on the list, and ensuring more specifically that elections are held within the constitutionally mandated time period. And that is what the PPP
Well, the
has been
PPP has
fighting
been
for.
pushing forward a work plan for a while now. I think when you were discussing this with us earlier.
Yes.
And
They are
before we
putting
get to that
forward-
one, again, I just like to I like to reiterate these points because they're very
Yes.
important. So as people understand clearly what is really taking place at the commission or at GCOM itself and what the Constitution says. This date of elections within 3 months is not something that someone dreamt up or got up one morning and say, hey, you know what, I think these guys could hold elections within 3 months. These time and the timelines that are there within the Constitution were gathered from GCOM technical staff itself. So it amazes us, or myself at least, I'm perplexed at the fact that GCOM is now saying that they need an entire year after they would have recommended that 3 months, we can have an elections within 3 months.
Can be held.
Well, they've always said, that. That's how it's in the Constitution as 3 months, is because that came from their directives.
Yeah, so before I get into the within the work plan, I just want to read the one final statement here, and this is what the PPP is finally saying. The PPP is of the view that the rogue GCOM Secretariat cannot be allowed to undermine the process that would allow for constitutional compliance and adherence to the rulings and orders of the Caribbean Court of Justice. And we know what the CCJ said concerning these elections, that it has it
Well,
ought
the
to have
CCJ
been
said the
held.
Constitution is
It
clear.
ought to have been held. The Constitution is clear.
And that we are all adults that could figure it out, but
Yes. Yeah, we're
Clearly-
supposed to act responsibly.
but clearly
That is not
anyways.
happening. So
Tell us about the work
Yeah,
plan.
so in March 2019, the opposition nominated GCOM commissioners proposed a work plan that would allow enough time for all the activities needed to ensure GCOM's readiness to be completed. Now, the plan contemplated a timeline under 60 days.
That's just 2
Right.
months.
Yes,
In
that's
fact.
correct. Now, events, the preliminary to nomination date, 10 or more days. These events included sending invitations to interested parties to submit their list.
So the thing is with all these events is that they can go concurrently, right? So the
Yes.
things that need to happen is training and testing for election day staff. We need to advertise and invite persons for training and retraining where necessary. Hold daily training program in an intensive training exercise all over the country to train and retrain all staff needed. What should be pointed out is that we just had elections,
Yes.
local
Just
government.
November
So
2018.
exactly. So we have people that are very like in the know, so we can
It's fresh.
use them, evaluate those, select and appoint polling day staff. Procurement of sensitive and non-sensitive material that needs to happen too. We also need civic and voter education. So there's all these ads that will run, which we just had too
Yes,
for local
we did,
government.
we
So
did.
it's a little bit of editing to explain the regional and general versus PR and
Maybe showing people where to place the X
and so on. Those are the
forth.
those are what
But
happens.
traditionally, most of the staff, these temporary staff that works on elections day in Ghana are
teachers basically.
and they've been
Doing it for a while.
over
so
and over
it's
and
a
over. So
recycled group of
they-
people.
yes,
so
it is.
they should have the know-how.
That's
And
what
if
I'm
this
saying. The
work-
training is not nothing extensive or,
No.
or you know, you have
and
to
well,
go
it's
through
groups of
anything.
people
too
that have
much.
been doing it for a while, right? So there might be a few new people where they need the
Yes.
intense training. But if this work plan were to be revived, that the one that you were mentioning,
Yes.
elections could be held before the end of 2019.
The
The 2015 election were held in 71 days.
Yes.
So that is
Excellent.
very clear that we can do this. These
Yes.
is very possible. Just
Yes.
Yeah, I recall we've mentioned that several
Yes,
times
it's
on the
not
show
not
before.
like if something magical happened at GCOM.
Exactly. And also to point out one, when you were talking about the press statement from the PP and the commission, the Secretariat rather, issued a press statement seeking to justify 55 days from nomination day to elections. In the 2015 general election, it was done within 37 days. So all of a sudden, we need these extra days and no
no reason
justified-
behind
yeah.
it. It's just basically GCOM delay tactics. Well, after GCOM met with the parliamentary opposition, the weekly statutory meeting of the commission continued, and several issues were up for discussion. There was no decision made. The discussions were on options of how to deal with the production or redesign of identification cards, and options on how to deal with cross-matching of fingerprints of persons registered during the now scrapped house-to-house registration, both of which GCOM Secretariat proposed to be done before election preparations for activities are started. So they want to do these things, then prepare for elections. So it's just a whole, I think you were mentioning to me the whole on why the designing of the ID cards is not a feasible exercise.
So the work plan from GCOM states that they are now seeking options to redesign the ID card and have them issued to person. However, there is no reason for a redesign of any ID cards. In fact, the chairperson now at the Guyana Elections Commission, back in 1997, I believe,
Yeah.
was the one that said that it's not necessary to have an ID card to vote.
Indeed.
Yeah, sure.
So this is clearly outside of the law, outside of a precedent already set by the chairperson that is there currently.
She,
It is
she
totally
would have
outside.
read all the cases, she would have done all the
She would
research.
listen to all the reasoning that both
That's
sides
correct.
presented and then came to that decision. And I
Exactly.
think she used Article 159 and 52, something
Yes,
of the
she
sort.
based her judgment on the Constitution to say that you cannot then demand an ID card of a person when you have a folio with their name,
And their
their
picture.
pictures, their address, and you have all the scrutineers there in the room who can verify.
Because Rudy, I have an ID card on me right now, and my ID card is valid. I use the ID card to do everything. So why can't I use the ID card that I currently have to vote at these next elections?
The only
Why do I
good thing
need a
about if
new
they
ID
do
card?
back ID cards is she gets a new picture.
So
Oh.
just to go through some facts quickly. So
Yes,
this is based on the work plan that GCOM put forward. That is why they met
Yeah.
at a date of March 2020. So they are looking at the Electoral Office of Jamaica to produce the new identification cards at a cost of $525,000, and this would take more than 2 months to be completed. The other option is for the Guyana Elections Commission themselves to produce these ID cards, but in order for them to do that, they would first need to purchase a laser engraving system,
Yeah.
which would cost almost US $500,000. And this would take over a month for them to get the process completed.
But isn't in both of these scenarios, don't they need to then procure the cards?
Yes, we also mentioned that earlier in the
Last
show,
week,
that
yeah.
that is just if we have the systems and everything at hand. However, they also have in the work plan that they then need to look at who would provide
You
the
have to procure
polycarbon
those cards.
cards. So, and they don't know how long that will take, they don't know what cost it will come at. So we can safely say that the time frame of 1 month or 2 months, whichever option they choose to go with, if they end up going
Well,
down this route, would be far more than
Remember
just 2
GCOM
months or a
did-
month itself.
GCOM earlier had said to the Caribbean Court that they couldn't be ready for December 25th, 2019.
Yes, I
So
recall,
how are they now saying March?
Yeah, I
2020?
recall Senior Counsel Marcus arguing at length that the
Christmas Day election.
the commission is an independent body and therefore no one can instruct it, and that the commission would be ready sometime in December.
Yes.
And of course, all the commissioners on the government side was on the news and the television and TV shows saying the same thing.
What's clear though is that they don't have any firm idea, or they don't have I would say a solid plan of how they can deliver these elections. And I think it is because they want the flexibility to continue to lengthen the time periods for some things to their
I
convenience.
think they
That's
have a
what I
plan
think it is.
because they've been doing elections for a while.
Yes.
And they're just trying to delay as much as possible. And clearly, Article 106 of the Constitution invests in the President
Yes.
and the National Assembly, including GCOM, the responsibilities and impact of having precise timing of where the elections need to be
Yes.
held. And as Steve had clearly pointed out, these ID card business
Yes.
is not
Yeah.
necessary.
Well, opposition
The
leader-
bottom line of it is
yeah.
that you don't need an ID card to
Yeah,
vote,
and
and
the
that
opposition
came
leader had
from
said
the
that.
chairperson when
Yes.
she was a sitting judge.
Yes.
And then
in-
they have this whole thing about the fingerprint cross matching now.
Oh, you
Yes,
were
they do.
saying?
No, I was just about to say that the opposition leader, Dr. Barajagdew, he had made it clear that it's wholly unnecessary because Guyanese are not required by the law to have identification cards to vote.
Yeah. He, of course, was basing that argument as well on the judgment by the
Yeah.
current
And
chairperson.
in that GCOM manual for training for all their agents and stuff, it has a section where if you come up without your ID card but your pictures there in a folio, you take an oath of identity.
Yes.
So in all the polling stations has all the holy books, the Quran, the Bible.
I can attest to that. It was administered to me in November 2018 when I went to vote, because I, for some strange reason, forgot my ID card, and then I said, yes, I am this person, I verify, and they administered the oath, and I got to vote
Yeah.
without
So
having an
all,
ID
Did you
card.
have
all
to hold
polling
a
day
holy
staff
book?
has it. All
Mhm.
polling day staff have the folio.
Yeah,
So-
Yeah.
and they just called out the name of everyone. It was like, yes, we see that person here, ID, blah,
He
yes,
looks
we
the
see
same
that
in the
person.
folio as
Yes.
he does here.
So, as you were mentioning, Nalini, the fingerprint cross matching, this is the fingerprints that they would have taken from the house to house
Scrapped house-to-house activity.
activity. So, what GCOM wants to do now is they want to use a company, Gemalto, a company that's been bought over by Cogent System Inc., a manufacturer of automated fingerprint identification system. So they want to engage this company at a cost of US $105,000 to cross-match, and strangely, only 350,000 fingerprints. But they have reported that they have 370,000 plus persons that have registered and fingerprints. So we're not sure what they're going to do with the other 20,000. Are they not going to do it? Are they just, I don't quite understand from their document what is going on there.
Those are already in the system because those are re-registrants, apparently. I don't know, I'm just.
Clearly something is not
Something
adding
fishy?
up somewhere.
Yeah.
And we went through the numbers last week to show
Yes,
Yeah,
that
to show that there's
7,000 plus persons within a GCOM polling area, which
A
was
substation in
registered
GCOM.
13,000 plus and moved up by 7,000 is unrealistic within that locality.
Especially with the fact that we know people refuse to register
Yes,
for a
exactly.
fact.
People
so it's
had
not like
refused to register, and there were not scrutineers that were present
Mhm.
while that was going on, and that point needs to get across to viewers. Maybe they weren't here for our prior programs where we talked about scrutineers not being there and signing on the document. So
Well, it only has some cases none, but some cases just a PNC when the law
Yes.
provides for the two because of where we came from with elections
Yes,
and all the
of course.
Well, the other option they're looking at in terms of the fingerprint cross-matching is the Electoral Office of Jamaica, who can only do it within a longer period of time. And Gemalto, I forgot to mention, said that they can have it done within 2 to 3 weeks, probably a month. They haven't given a clear timeline. As it relates to the Electoral Office of Jamaica, there is no timeline period. They basically don't know when they can finish doing that. The other option that GCOM is also exploring is for them to buy their own system, which they can then do their cross-matching. Now the cost of this is US $1,114,000 US.
yes.
And they say they can get this done within a 3 weeks period if they procure the system, with another week to set it up, testing and all of this. So you're looking at a month
people
again.
and all of that.
Yes.
You think it's a week?
Well, they're claiming that they can get it done within a month. So we're yet to see what decision. I think it's appropriate at this time to mention that these issues that we've just highlighted, as well as that which we started off the program with by saying that the chairperson says that she would look at the possibility and discuss it with the commission to get a decision as to whether they will extract a list and go to claims and objections or move ahead with these plans, which will see us going forward into 2020, March 2020. There's a meeting tomorrow, and these are the items on the agenda to be discussed. So hopefully we can get some sort of decision being made next week.
Hopefully we get an election date, and
Yes.
speaking of elections, we get the whole election gimmicks. The things they're promising people again. Remember 2015, there was these lofty promises.
They're calling it the silly season.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Coming
in the
before.
midst of the uncertainty at GCOM, we see the caretaker government working hard to roll out on these election gimmicks, specifically in the hinterland. So there are two things that is really terrible what they're doing there, the land titling. So the caretaker, APNU, AFC coalition government is making it very difficult for the Amerindian people to obtain lands and land extensions by stipulating they provide a village improvement plan as part of a process to grant their rightfully owned properties. So PPP has pointed that out, is that these rights have been enshrined in the Amerindian Act of 06.
Yes.
And then she said the government should not be withholding lands from the indigenous community, land that belongs to them, and honor the act.
In fact, the Amerindian Land Titling Unit was disbanded in 2015 when the government took office.
Yes.
And
They had several million US dollars in that
Yeah.
account that the PP would have left them to
Yes.
get this project finished.
But still, it was rather slow, and it was almost
In
moving
fact,
at a
it
snail's
wasn't just
pace.
slow. They haven't done a
They
single
did.
village.
But
They didn't title.
They hadn't
they've
done
scrapped
any.
the whole program,
Yes.
so it's a whole.
They haven't titled a single Amerindian village,
Incompetence.
nor did they grant an extension to a single Amerindian village. In 2015, you would have seen a
But
photo opportunity with
Yeah.
the minister, Singh,
Yes, I do recall
the
that.
caretaker minister now. That was the one that was finished by the PPP and just left there. So he just basically collected
But
it from his
he's-
desk and handed it out and had
took
this
a
vast
photograph and
photo
Yeah,
opportunity
but the thing is
with
too,
it.
the Act doesn't require this village improvement plan for the processing or granting of land extension to any indigenous village or community.
Mhm.
So creating this whole new barrier and hoop for the people to jump through, and then coming back and saying, oh yes, we'll now re-establish this land titling unit. The unit that you disbanded, the one that you made it even harder for the people, you created all these barriers. And then speaking of barriers and making things harder for people, is they put VAT on airfare and freight going into the hinterland, making it more expensive for things. And what was interesting is they decided, GRA has issued a list of 54 airstrips where VAT would not be applied. And when you go and check these airstrips out, of the 54 listed, only one sees flights. So
Wow.
53 of them are unused. So removing VAT from something that is not used is like 0 plus 0 is still 0. So VAT
Yes.
on hinterland airline tickets and freight came into effect on February 1st, 2017. Seeing the
Yes.
election coming, we're now going to reverse that and bring it back. And they brought it around to 14%. I mean, they claim they're going to drop VAT. They dropped it from
Yeah.
14%, from 16% to 14, and add it on to everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, speaking of that, the miners, they would have gotten election gimmicks in 2015 and they were
Yeah.
completely ignored for about four going on 5 years now. But then just the other day, the caretaker president, he went on to meet with the miners now, probably offering them a new basket of false promises and all the rest of it. So we see this continued effort, this continued plan by this government to
Well-
give gimmicks to people and expect us to buy it. Well, I think Guyanese people are much smarter this go around. They're going to see this for what it is.
Yeah.
Which
Since
is
And
20
nothing but an election gimmick because
Yes.
the
Yeah.
government has failed on every promise.
Yes.
And we
Since
mentioned that.
2016, the value-added tax was contemplated on the hinterland airline tickets and freight, and the PPP has made it clear of its objections to this. This
Yes,
is not fair. This is
they-
adding burden to the people.
It
that
was
you
a
shouldn't.
part of the budget debates there, and since then they registered their objection to this, saying that it will bring forward a hardship to people. I recall clearly that when the coalition government took office, they fired 2,000 Amerindian
The CSOs,
CSOs. That in effect they just damaged the village economy of the
Yeah.
Amerindians. So whereas you had the villages earning money and they spend it within that community, they then fire them.
But they
and-
don't understand the economic cycle.
Yes.
and replaced
It's-
it with
and
shoes that grows.
It was 800. It's about 800 million. I think they pulled out of the village economies doing that.
Yeah, well, the 2,000 times their salary.
Yeah, and
would
then
be
remember
about
they
it,
spend and people
Yes.
buy and it
Could you
cycles
imagine
on.
the families though of those people who were earning that money? We have
Yeah.
to think about the families that were affected. You know, the children, the mothers, the fathers, who
Well-
were affected by when this income was pulled from the family.
Yeah.
You have to think about
And that
how
wasn't the
it would
only
have-
income
how it would
pulled
have
from
affected.
families because they took away the 10,000 cash grant as well, which is a
Yes.
promise of the PP to reinstate that cash grant
Yes.
immediately.
Well, in the hinterland,
upon-
there's all the they took away their more for all across for children. They took away their school vouchers. The feeding program has diminished. A lot of different things they've been doing that is.
And
just
these were
taking
all
for themselves,
programs that
basically.
were employed by the PP just to help people to alleviate poverty, to get people working, to train people, and get them on their feet. So they'd be less
Yeah.
dependent on the state. In an effort to just keep all the money for themselves, because as we mentioned on and on before, that they've increased their own budgets and they're spending on
Yeah, well, their food.
useless
Remember you
and
were
their
saying
food
last
bill.
week that
Yeah.
the food bill is larger than it ever was,
Yeah, exactly. So they're basically taking this money away from people and keeping it for themselves.
and eating it.
And now they're coming back to the voters because it's elections again, with these elections gimmick, saying that, oh, you know what? We're going to no longer have VAT,
Yeah.
for example,
But
on
the
the
thing is, they're
freight.
trying to come back now and put back the social support that they took away. So the social support to the country has been completely depleted. Like a lot of things services that were offered and available, they took away, and now they're gonna promise to reinstate it. To win a vote,
Yeah, well,
So-
we clearly know that they're not going to fulfill their promises.
Well, but you
and
could
They have
look at their
proven this
100
over and
days.
over.
Guyanese have to just look at their track record over
Look
the
at their
past 4
100-day
years.
plan, how
Look
much
at-
items finished on
That's
that.
correct. Look at what they promised and look at what they delivered. If you
Yeah.
have it in one category, what they promised is going to be full. You're going to have probably a list of probably a million things. And you look at what
have a
they
book.
have, maybe have a book, could probably write a whole journal. And when you look at what they have delivered to the Guyanese people,
Can't
I
fit on a
think,
sticky note.
you won't see much there. And this is what Guyanese we would have been faced with. We have to now make a decision at the next election that we're going to vote the PPP back into office.
The hinterland has been
yes.
worse off. They're one of the regions that have been hit the hardest, I think, since
Definitely,
with the government change.
and they were actually saying that the PPP has not been doing enough for the hinterland
Yeah.
region, and they used to say that the PPP is only for one race, the PPP is only in one region, the PPP is this and the PPP is that. But now we see the writing is clear on the wall that this government is only after one people, and that's themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the people that they're after.
Yeah.
Exactly.
themselves.
Not even their
supporters.
supporters.
Not even
Yeah,
their
that's-
supporters.
yeah.
They're after themselves. They're spending money and they're looking after themselves. That is their agenda right now. It's not even to look after their own supporters and people who basically give them everything as they're in office. So last Friday, Guyanese, we were informed that cabinet, in quotation mark, noted the award of almost 4 billion Ghana dollars in contracts. Well, it's about. So sorry, to be exact, in 1 week alone, it's about $3,880,980,000. So and we saw that in just 1 week, the awarding contract. So full transparency is completely gone now, and there's
No
actually
transparency.
no accountability in spending. Now, where did this money come from to award these contracts?
Yeah, because they were not budgeted for.
It was
Yeah.
not budgeted
If
for.
you look at these contracts and the works that they plan to do, these were not in the budgets of any of the ministries. They were not in the
But
budgets
how are
of
they
the
making
RDC
these
and the NDC.
decisions to spend money since cabinet technically?
The question is what cabinet?
Exactly,
What
the
cabinet?
wardrobe.
What cabinet?
And then I think you were mentioning last week that it was 1 billion the week before.
Yes.
So it's like they're spending the spending
And
increases.
there was a period that the cabinet met, but there wasn't any post-cabinet press briefings. So
Yes.
we don't know how much
That's
money was
correct.
awarded during that 2 weeks period as well.
So it was Tuesday they met for cabinet last week, and we found out till Friday. So the Guyanese people, we're actually having a lag with our communication. We're not getting information as we should.
We get it a week late.
That's right. So
For
Guyanese,
week
we're
delay.
being updated only on a basis that the government feels that
the-
we should be updated on these
Yeah,
issues.
important that you said, no transparency or accountability. They're giving us information as if it's a need-to-know basis. So, hey, we did this. I don't think anyone needs to know about it, so we just keep that quiet. Oh yeah, we did this. Do you guys think we should tell them? Yeah.
That's
let's
rock
do
paper.
that.
I think it's like
That's
a rock
good.
paper scissors thing going on in there.
Clearly,
So
because
like
they-
today I win, we get to tell the people tomorrow.
Well, clearly they've been running government like that all the time because they're
Well,
totally incompetent in
Pulling
office.
names out of a hat to rock paper scissors.
Yeah, and I feel like they don't have a sense of commitment to transparency, to good governance in a
Well,
sense.
They did not. They were the ones that don't use the procurement commission. That the
Yes.
what do you call it?
Importantly, that you mentioned the Procurement Commission and Empatab, they are currently sourcing all these contracts.
Yes.
If you check the newspapers, there are no expression of interest, no bids for any
No
of these
tender.
contracts, no tender for any of these contracts that has been awarded. As you said, one is almost 4 billion Ghana dollars in just 1 week.
Yes.
So clearly it's being sole sourced.
Yeah.
And who's benefiting from these? Obviously the friends and families of the coalition government, no one else.
So now the decision of the illegal APNU AFC cabinet, the members which should have resigned with the successful passage of the no confidence motion,
They stood resigned.
to spend a whopping $2.5 billion to procure a new border management and e-passport system was announced by Director General of the Ministry of the Presidency on Friday, September 6, 2019. Now,
That was another interesting one too. Director General, demoted from minister to Director General. And we make up titles these days.
But still practically operating as if he was operating before.
Well, their
Yeah.
usual stance, business as usual, nothing has happened.
Just change
We're
the
in
title.
control, we do what
I
we
thought
want.
there was
you
no
know?
availability of jobs. So how is this job suddenly?
jobs for their boys.
One does have to wonder, but Cabinet has been meeting in total defiance of the Constitution of Guyana and the ruling and orders of the Caribbean Court of Justice, because Cabinet stood resigned.
That's what the Constitution says, and I don't think...
That's correct. And actually, they had said that they accept that they can't be called Cabinet anymore. They were used to say that they're going to have a ministerial plenary now. But
after the ruling of the Chief Justice, she said in her judgment that the Cabinet stood resigned as of the 21st of December.
January.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how could we trust anything that this government is saying to us? How could we depend on them to act in our interests when all they have shown us, not just since the no confidence motion, but since they have been in office since 2015, is that they don't know how to run a government, and that they don't look after the interests of the Guyanese people. How could we as Guyanese trust anything that they're saying?
Imagine that this government is so defiant of the laws of this country that we now have to go to court to get orders from the court again to compel them to resign. Or if, as the Chief Justice would have mentioned in her ruling earlier this year, that they stood resigned, to give an order to mandate them that they do not meet and award these contracts and everything. So just to give you guys a quick update on that case, it is the case of the former Attorney General versus the current Attorney General, Anil versus the state, Nandlal versus the Attorney General, where his lawyers at the last case management conference, which was held on Monday this week, the Chief Justice gave some clear timelines. So the 16th of September, the lawyers representing Mr. Nandlal, on or before that date, is expected to make their submissions, their written submissions to the court. The Attorney General has until the 21st of September, on or before that date, to make his reply, his written reply. Yes. And then she has set, the Chief Justice has set the 30th of September for arguments and hearing of the case.
Okay, so
or if any clarification she may have based on those submissions, and then she would set a date for ruling subsequently thereafter.
Let's see the Chief Justice. I like her. She always is very prompt and get timings really quickly.
Yes, but how ridiculous is this to now we have to go to court?
I think it's a little beyond ridiculous.
Yes, to tell the government that you have to resign according to the Constitution.
Follow the Constitution.
That's
when
right.
they're supposed to
In
be
fact,
the ones
I was
upholding
looking at
it,
a TV program where the Minister of Public Security was a featured guest. He read from the Constitution, Article 106.6, and he read, upon the successful defeat of a no confidence motion, the Cabinet, including the President, should resign, and and he went on. He put the Constitution down and said, it never says we should resign. Where does it say that? So it's
After
not ordinary.
reading the word resign.
It's not ordinary people we're dealing with. So it's amazing
Maybe
that
some
we have to go
dictionaries
through
for Christmas is what's needed.
this
this
phenomenon in 2019 in Guyana.
It's so unfortunate what it's doing to democracy, because this is something like we thought our ancestors fought for, and it was like a right for us, and then this happens, and you have this whole situation where you're like, what year am I in? Is this the 21st century?
Yes, so true. And another thing that we see developing in the country is the race card being played a lot
As
in
you said,
our
we're going
country.
backwards all the
Yes,
time.
the race card. And I feel as if this is the only card left to be played by the government, because I mean,
What else do they have, though?
in an election season where you have failed to deliver on all of your promises, where your base no longer trusts you because you've taxed them, you have taken away all of their social support services, where you have said where you've said you would erase corruption and all the rest of it, but now you're the most corrupt
in the history.
And as well, you know, when you're a government and you're basically spending all the money on yourself, now this is the only card that's left to be played, and I feel as if this has always been what they're about, playing the race card. You know, another, and this is a worrying trend that we've seen, the use of state funds and state assets, such as the state media, to polarize the Guyanese people. We know about the Guyana Chronicle now is actually being used.
That's
some very frightening articles or rehashing of stuff that has already been settled by the Guyana Police Force and various other entities of the armed forces involving them. are now being rehashed in the Guyana Chronicle on a weekly basis.
Not only
Yes.
rehashed,
And-
it's also being fabricated. Some
Exactly.
stories have been
Yeah.
fabricated.
Yes. Information that's not accurate is being placed there.
Yeah, like a lot of it, especially about
On a
the
weekly
troubled
basis,
times.
with one thing in mind, as you said, is just playing the race card, plotting
Yes.
Guyanese against each other based on
Because
ethnicity.
I am sure that the Guyanese people already know that the opposition leader, the PPP, has already said that they welcome commission of inquiry into the deaths that happened during the troubled period. You know,
That's what the Chronicle refers
yes,
to it as.
yes.
The troubled period.
The
We
crime
use
wave
their
period. Yeah,
their
we'll
term
use their lingo.
so they know
But-
exactly what we're talking about.
But I'm sure that if the results come out from that COI, I think that that's why this government has refused, because they have launched COIs into everything else. But why haven't they launched a COI into this time
Into
and the
the troubled
occurrences?
times?
What would have happened?
COIs that aren't favorable to them, they're
Yes.
trying not to do, like Walter Rodney's, the results of
Yes.
was squashed.
And even the ones that they did and completed, and they did not get favorable results, they just toss it away.
Like-
Case in
Or
point, the
they
sugar,
reverse,
the
yes.
inquiry into the
Guy
sugar
Sucre.
estate.
Yeah.
When the Commission of Inquiry came back and it recommended no closure of any estate,
They
the
went
president
ahead
just threw it away
yeah.
and went ahead
That
and
was
closed
never
the
seen.
Yeah,
estate.
and they didn't
Okay,
have
he
to
never
do
saw
anything.
it.
So we really have to be very watchful,
Yeah.
because the PPP has really been trying to create an environment where all the parties are able to collate and work together to develop Guyana. And I
And
think that's the important thing.
And using the race card is such a outdated tactic.
It's very, very
Because it's
outdated.
weird. This is 21st century. We all have access to social media. You can
Yes.
see the things that are happening. This whole, like, I've seen this on social media. People talking
Yeah.
about like a whisper campaign. So they'll have these bottom house type meetings where they'll go and be
That
like,
is where they start this entire thing with the race card. They don't just go publicly and mention it
Yes.
now, or they won't start
Yeah.
now, but they go and infiltrate these communities, get a group of people, and they
you-
start it.
And they build people up with hate, and it's like you're pitting Guyanese against Guyanese when that should not be the case. We should all work together for a better Guyana, not a whole, because your skin color is different.
Yeah, so we basically have to be very watchful about this, and I think that the Ethnic Relations Commission, which is a constitutional body that has a lot of power, basically to shut down stations, to summons people. The ERC has a lot of power.
They
So
even
I
have the
think
power to stop a party from running for
That's
elections
correct.
if
What-
they're found
that's
guilty
correct.
of race baiting and
So
stuff like that.
the-
They have that
there is
power.
a
They do.
need-
Yes, they have that
Oh.
power.
There's a need for the ERC to act on these matters. I know.
And will they?
We're the three of us, we're all on social media. We
Yes.
see a lot of comment and commentary that has been happening on Facebook with people with some racist comments and so on and so forth. So
Yes, we've had a few targeted too. So we're
yes, we do need the ERC to act in this regard and to also ensure that they monitor the newspaper daily, because there's a lot of undertones and racist remarks being made there and so on and so
There's a lot of
forth.
times you're reporting things on social media, and because like the terminologies that they're used for racist
Yes.
comment isn't very common to Facebook,
Yes,
they reply to you being like, "Oh, this is not what we would remove."
yes. So we do need the ERC to act,
Yes.
because the next elections, it's not about race. The next election will be about who can produce a proper plan, who can implement a plan that would see your life doing better, being better, your family improving,
Who
your
can
standard
move
of
Guyana
living,
forward.
and who can move Guyana forward.
'Cause-
That is what the next election will
Because
be
the
about.
track record that the coalition government is leaving behind as it relates
There's a
to
reverse
this
plan.
is failed promises, loss of jobs, economic decline. Just earlier we were having a conversation. I was having a conversation with some friends of mine. The economy is so bad that the prices are so volatile right now that the U.S. has skyrocketed.
Yes.
I think the last
And
time
yet the
exchange
government
rate was,
maintains that. Sorry.
two thirty something was the exchange
Two
rate.
torte currently.
Yeah.
$1 US. So that is what is happening currently. So economic decline. I know the government like to say, the economy has grown by so much and so much, but that is not reflected in any of the sectors. All the sectors are down, and if you look at the Bank of Guyana reports, you would see that.
Well, the economy could be growing from their spending alone, but when you look at the average life of a Guyanese person, it has not gotten better, which is what a government should do every time, is make your life a little bit better.
And I think that is why they've resorted to the race card again, because it's the only thing they have now that they can come to the people with.
Which is
They
sad,
have failed
because
in
if they
everything.
haven't noticed, the PP is a very multi-ethnic party.
Yes.
So it's not
indeed.
just one ethnicity dominant in the PPP.
That's correct.
You see it
And
across
if-
leadership.
If our viewers look at the bottom of their screen, they would see some of the plans that the PPP wishes to implement when it returns to office before the end of the year. Just at the bottom of your screen, there are several things there that the PPP is promising. No VAT on electricity and water.
Which is something that was there before.
Yes, that's correct. It has significantly affected the manufacturing sector, the service sector, all sectors it has affected, and I don't think that the government is conscious. They don't have a conscience, basically, and they're not aware.
Conscience or common sense?
Both.
They're not aware of the implications of these decisions, and I'm sure that the PPP has realized that VAT on water and electricity is really causing a significant burden on the Guyanese people. That's why they have resorted to removing it, creating 50,000 new jobs for people within all the sectors. And we did talk about how we're going to create those jobs, foreign direct investment, stimulating the private sector, ensuring that
Reopening the sugar
businesses,
estates.
reopening the sugar estates, ensuring that new opportunities are presented for young people in the oil and gas sector.
Just
Well,
hiring
the
young people.
PPP is going to release very soon a reader-friendly version of the manifesto. I
Yes.
know for a fact that is in its final stages currently. However, the much thicker, complex document will be released a bit later as we get the date later in this year
I
for the
think
elections.
the ticker complex version will be released after the date.
Yeah,
I think they're
after
gonna wait
the-
for a date because we have a government that needs direction, so they might just take that and change the front page and hand it out.
So yeah, this is what we're coming with.
This is what we're gonna do for you guys.
But as always, as young people here ourselves and speaking to a young demographic and even the older one, what I like to encourage everyone is to not just vote based on race. Do not get corrupted by these politicians, especially those that are in government currently, and fall for their tactics of race baiting. Just look at the track record of the parties that are contesting. Look at the manifesto promises. Look at when they were in office, what they were able to achieve and accomplish, and then make your decision based
on
on those facts.
Yeah, only earlier this week, Steve and I, Roodi and I were actually discussing when you weren't there with us for this. But we're discussing how people listen to their ancestors, so they're like parents and grandparents who have like an innate hate. So this is more for like our younger audience, the Facebook streamers here. But what we should look at is, as Steve mentioned, what has the government done for you and what has the PPP done? So you look at the two and you see which is more favorable to your lifestyle and making life better for you. Because you see, the moment this government got into power, all the nightclubs basically shut down.
Well, the 2 a.m. curfew, that's why.
Yeah, exactly. And all
operate.
these places that we were talking about, Tony Jerry's the other day, shut down really soon after the 2 a.m. night.
Yes, I saw King's Plaza shut down the other day as well. I was going to a specific location. I saw King's Plaza shut down. I said, the man, what's going on here? The man said the place shut down. I said, it's just like that place is shutting down these days.
And that's why I was talking about the economic decline. People
have
are
less
not
money,
even aware at the level at which it's happening.
Well, you go into the grocery store and you're seeing less options on the shelf, and that's a clear indication that your economy
But
is
at
in
least
decline.
there's still some grocery stores open, because between, let's say, Commons Lodge to Mahaika, many of those communities had like 3-4 shops. They only have one now.
Well, those small
They're
shops, there's a tax now implemented on those. So any of those areas on the East Coast,
There's a
is
part of the
controlled
200
by
plus
the-
new
yeah.
taxes and measures that were
Any
increased.
of those NDCs fully PNC controlled, those taxes were implemented because the PPP, last local government, promised no tax. So all the PPP controlled NDCs did not implement that. So in those villages, you still have those little small shops. You still have auntie in the corner selling custard blocks and things
And
like
NGRA coming for her.
that. Well, that's the thing. The GRA has asked the NDCs for a list. So the PPP controlled ones have not submitted those.
Yes, and also to specifically just talk briefly about the oil sector,
Yeah.
PPP has definitely said that the oil money is to benefit all Guyanese.
Well,
it's to benefit everyone.
the General Secretary went after the Tolo group because they were given frontier status when we are no longer in that.
They were able to garner a better deal than
Than-
the Frontier Company,
exactly.
actually, because their royalty would be zero to Ghana,
Yes,
paid to
yes,
Ghana,
that's
because They're giving us 1% and then it's recoverable. So we have to pay them back the
So
1%.
have you guys seen
Listen.
the local content?
Oh no!
Content policy?
Don't start, Stephen.
And I mean,
Please, we're gonna be here all night.
yes, and I do mean though, I want to encourage young people. Maybe we can get a link to show them what's going on.
What we could do is upload it to the page, and
Yes,
we can
we can do
upload
that.
the suggested UNDP document of what a
Yes.
local content policy should be.
A comprehensive study. of
Yes.
But
the
take a
local
look.
content.
Take a look at what this government
Is
is basically
promising?
promising and basically signing on to for a local content
I think
policy.
Kite
It should be
News
called a
is
content
covering it
policy.
really well.
Yes.
So there's some ads in Kite News, and they've been doing a really good job highlighting how royally screwed we're being
Yes.
by our government.
It all started wrong though. We were told that there was no signing bonus. It all started from there.
Well,
They
that was
hid
one of the things
18
the
million,
document said.
18 million US dollars from us with the sign-in bonus. We were basically lied to every step of the way from this government, and the bad deals that they would have signed. We can't blame the oil companies. We have to blame the government because they're representing our interests. So it's up to us to hold the government accountable. The poor negotiation and poor contracts that they have done. The PPP has said that they will look to
Yeah.
examine those contracts and examine those agreements and every
the
agreement that this
document Steve and
government
I are actually
has
talking
entered
about,
into.
one of the things it said is you have to start off right. The deal has to be good from the beginning.
Yes.
And then when you look at what was promised in draft 1 and 2 was not bad idea. It was really good ideas actually. It was following what proposals are.
We're starting to
should be.
deteriorate as we get to the final product though.
Exactly.
Which is
like
important.
in draft 1 there was more protection for Guyanese and so
Yes.
on. Draft 2 less. The final draft that was recently
There's
released
basically
was
no
just
Terrible.
there was the
Terrible.
word local wasn't mentioned.
Yes.
So
and
there's
and
no-
this
Very,
is
very
all
interesting.
about benefiting local companies, benefiting Guyanese.
Transferring
That-
skills to Guyanese so we
that's
can have
correct.
further development of our country. But there's nothing like that. There's no protection for Guyanese. Just fishermen, for example. There's supposed to
Yes.
be something in there to protect them too. Say an oil
Yes.
spill happens. We don't have any.
See,
of
our
that.
operator is waving at us frantically. So I guess this is another discussion that we can have another day as it
Yes, we
relates to
can.
this new industry and what's happening there. So
Yes. I do want to remind our viewers, we had a very fruitful discussion, but I want to remind our viewers that you can pick up a copy of Mirror. It has several of these articles and several of the things that we're discussing within the Mirror. So if you do not understand clearly everything that we said, it's more expansively explained and deliberated in the Mirror. So please get your copy as soon as possible.
And I think if you can't find a copy of the Mirror, it's always available online.
yes, it's also available on Facebook and online every Monday. It's free of cost online actually. So
Where do you find it online?
Weekend Mirror, the Facebook page is called Weekend Mirror, so you can always get a free copy there.
Okay. So just reminding to our viewers is if you find our program, you can find this program anytime on Facebook, This Week in 60 Minutes, where you can watch it anytime. So if you missed the beginning, or you started halfway, or you just want to listen to us again or share it with a friend, just send them to our Facebook page, This Week in 60 Minutes, and it will be available there.
So just to point out, in closing, we have had a very fruitful discussion, as one said. We spoke about GCOM. We gave you some updates as to what's taking place there. Just to mention again that tomorrow there will be another meeting of the commission,
Yes.
and based on what Mr. Hampton would have said and delivered the opposition, that the assurances by the chairperson that they're working towards an election date long before the end of the year. We're hoping that some decision can be made tomorrow at that meeting. We also spoke about the election gimmick of the coalition government, so be careful not to be caught in one of these. And one also pointed out about the blatant spending of the cabinet and wasting of resources, as well as their one and only option that they're coming to you with, which is to stop racism within our country. So thank you guys for being with us for the last hour or so. We hope you enjoyed the program, and we do hope to see you guys next week. Thank you
Have a
and
good
good night.
evening.
Have a good evening. And
Bye. Have a good evening.